Hi, this audiobook is read by Mr. Prince Prakashan as a volunteer for the author, and I grant my permission for this audio to be used by the author for his commercial or personal use.
Who Am I? By Kalpesh Suryawanshi. Who am I? We all have faced this question at some point in our life. There are thousands of books written on this topic. Many institutions, religious or otherwise, are based on the foundation of this very question. After reading thousands of such books, listening to many so-called gurus, philosophizing and thinking about it, we as individuals still have not discovered the answer. Perhaps the question itself is wrong. But how could it be so? There is no wrong question, only the answers are. And so if the question is correct, then why there is no answer? The truth, that is answer. Spiritual leaders, psychologists, philosophers have all tried their best to unsolve this mystery, yet we are still asking the same questions, same doubts. If their answers were correct, then we wouldn't be asking this question, isn't it? Some say that not all questions are meant to be answered. Well, I will have to disagree with it. Every question by its nature must have an answer. We shouldn't quit till we get it. The question, who am I, is not something that comes out from thin air. It is a follow-up question. It is built on the premise of I. When we say, who am I? Then we assume that there is something called the I. It is like asking, where is God? That is, we accept the existence of God and we now just seek its location. You ask, who am I? But is there any I? The French philosopher René Descartes said yes, when he famously said, Dubito ergo cogito, cogito ergo sum, which means, I doubt, therefore I think therefore I am. Descartes said that ability of questioning rationality makes him conscious about the fact that there should be a thinker behind all this thinking, and to some extent, I will have to agree with him. But there also seems to be a flaw in the implication of his statement. If thinking or doubting proves consciousness followed up by existence, then what about an infant who can't yet think? What about the animals? What about the plants that can't think? If thinking implies thinkers, then the non-thinker should also be non-existent. Now, we know that the plants and animals exist. But do they know that they exist? This problem is similar to the question of, is there a sound if there is no listener? If we head scientifically, then the sound as such does not exist. Only vibrations or waves do. And it is our senses that convert those vibrations which we can call as sound. Therefore, technically, there will be no sound if there is no listener. Thus, Descartes is right technically because there can't be a thinker without thinking. This brings us closer to some truth. The world we see is our creation. It exists because of the existence which is us. There is beauty because of the beholder. There is jungle because of the animals. Positive is because of the negative and vice versa. The world is like an image in front of a mirror which is us. We are complementary, so we both, nature and beings, exist together. Having established the existence of I, we shall now move towards a deeper realm. Who is that which we call as I? Grammatically, I is the first person, singular pronoun. We use the letter I to distinguish ourselves from others. We use I to separate ourselves from others, therefore creating an individual or ego. This I then takes various forms throughout our life. The I is a student, doctor, father, child, human, and so on. The I is emotional, it is sometimes sad or happy. The I is intellectual and sometimes stupid. The I is young, but then it also gets old. As we say it, then, the I is not one, but many. Gurdjieff was right when he said that man is a combination of various I's, or egos. We call it I, but it is actually us. I is not one singular phenomenon, but many, and it is constantly changing or evolving. As Darwin said, evolution is a process of change at an infinitely slow speed. So if a man is evolving, even if it is at a slow speed, then shall we call him I? As the above hypothesis suggests, man is not one entity, but a constantly developing activity. Man is not a noun, but a verb. Everything that is in flux is a process which cannot be called a subject. I certainly am not the same man as I was born, and won't be the same after this book gets published, but I call myself I. It is as if we absorb all the happenings into us and call it I. Our language could also be one cause of this complexity. We say it is raining, but what is it? We say the fly is flying, but what is the fly? We say the light is lightning. What is the light? They're all verbs used as nouns. Light, for example, is not something that stays still. It is constantly moving. Therefore, light is an action, but we use it as a noun. The I, therefore, should not be confined within any boundaries as it is still unsolving itself. Now, if I is constantly changing phenomenon, then why do we cling to it? Why do we keep identifying ourselves with the new I? Why do we regard our past and present persona as I, even though they are miles apart? The answer here is our memory. It is the memory of the humans that acts as a stitching thread between the past and the present I. The identification is established on the basis of that memory. If somehow the memory gets erased so as to break the link between the past and the present, then the man no longer knows who he is. Amnesia is a state where men tend to ask the question, "Who am I?" which is not any philosophical gesture but a firm inquiry. They really do not know the I due to the absence of memory or because of the difficulty in accessing it. Amnesia is rare state or disease, whatever you like to call it, is a proof that men need the I. To survive, we should be able to make distinction between the nature and the being. Man cannot live without the I. The association by all means is needed for all this to make sense. This sort of association with the I gives meaning to our life. We sometimes identify ourselves with our body, our family, our job, our degree, our religion, or by our community. So this need of man to keep on searching for more, a better association, leads us on this quest. At phase or at some stage, we get tired of the old associations and we seek higher purpose. This search is whole quest of our life, and if the search ends, then the I also ends, and our system does not want to accept it. We do not want this quest to end because the end of the quest will also be our end, the end of I. Today people are living more comfortable, more safe, more happy lives than our ancestors, yet deep down we are dissatisfied. There are more cults and self-help groups than there were in the past. Yet there are more depressed people than there were in the past. What did we do to deserve this? What wrong did we do? Why, being surrounded with all the luxuries and comfort, are we still into this quest? The answer could be understood by Maslow's hierarchy theory of needs, which he proposed in 1943. The theory proposes 5 levels of needs, which are as follows. Number 1. Physiological needs, like air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction, etc., which could be called as our instincts. Number 2, safety needs, like our personal security, employment, resources, health, property, etc. Number 3, social needs, our friendship, intimacy, family, etc. Number 4, ego or esteem, consists of respect, status, recognition, freedom, etc. And number 5, self-actualization, is the final stage where one begins to question, is this all? And then the desire to reach at the utmost potential of oneself is born. If you look carefully at the pyramid, then you may realize that these are stages of not only an individual, but of the whole mankind or civilization. From primitive man to the modern man, we have reached the level 4, where we have done and achieved all that could be attained in the material world. From here, the path of science won't be of much help, but spiritual quest is necessary. In India, we have had many such great beings like Krishna, Buddha, Mahavira, Guru Nanak, Ramana Maharshi, and so on. Christians have Christ, Muslims have Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So we are filled with men in our history of civilization who are said to have achieved the 5th level, that is, self-actualization. Even in the recent times, we had people like J. Krishnamurti, Ramakrishna Paramhansa, U.G. Krishnamurti, Rajneesh, also known as Osho, or the 21st century's Jaggi Vasudev, also known as Sadhguru, whom people call as enlightened beings. These are people who have set examples or sort of proved that there is something called self-actualization. But their messages are very different, and so are their teachings, which we won't be considering now. For the time being, let us accept that they are what the people say they are. Let us accept for a while that self-actualization or enlightenment is indeed possible, and now the question arises, how? How can one become enlightened? The question of who am I is the quest of truth which supposedly leads to enlightenment. In the past, different gurus have given different answers, and we have to take their word for it because there is no way questioning them once we have agreed that they know. Let us then analyze the path of each significant person. Starting with Ramana Maharishi, who had given answers to the similar question in his book called Who Am I? The whole method of Maharshi is to question your whole existence and discard all the answers. If you say you are the body, then he would say that the body is not really you. He would say I is not your name, your job, your religion, but something beyond. And if you seek deeper, then you may realize the true self, which will get you in union with the universe. You will then find yourself everywhere, in trees, in plants, rocks, everywhere. No separation as an individual, but absolute. So, his major contribution was of self-doubt to raise the question, who am I? Second, we have Gautam Buddha, whose way was the way of self-torture. You fast, you sit in an uncomfortable position, you restrict yourself with a particular kind of food, leading to a separation between you and your body. And in this routine of meditation and observing your breath would lead you to heightened state of awareness or nirvana. Mahavira's way was also similar, but he was stricter than Buddha with his rules and regulations. Today, many so-called gurus have followed up with these old techniques and have differentiated themselves from others with the branding. If you look at this whole thing from an economical point of view, then you may realize that enlightenment is a valuable and a rare experience, much more valuable than any materialistic possession. The super rich, the upper class, middle class are major consumers of this need. By analyzing carefully, you may conclude then that the demand of such experience would be more in developed countries with weak religious foundations like America and Europe. Let us admit this once and for all that Christianity and Islam are one of the major world religions, but they both are commanding religions. They both have a doctrine of surrender and to devote full faith to the Prophet, and the non-believer here is then considered as atheist or kafir. Adding to that, the religion is based upon the presence of one single God, whether he or she is still debated. In scientific history, many of their teachings have been shaken through new discoveries, from Galileo to Darwin to Stephen Hawking. There are many instances of logical fallacy in the Bible as well as the Quran, and so any man with some rationale can start questioning their reliability. This has led to their major part of population to have disbelief in such God, but man cannot still stand on his feet. He needs either religion or philosophy or science or spirituality. Abandoning God is not enough because he needs another cliff to cling on to. Some of them have learned to find comfort in science, some in philosophy, but these are very different kinds of people because it requires a certain amount of intellect to understand it. This is why we have few philosophical communities, few scientific societies, but many anti-religious cults, many meditation centers, many satsangs and so on. When one has achieved all that which could be achieved, then he is more inclined to visit India or follow a Baba rather than finding the answer by himself. The United States of America has Silicon Valley, but India has Gyanganj in Himalayas, which is a mysterious place where immortals live who have attained the fifth level of needs, that is self-actualization. There is also mini hubs where foreigners seek fifth need in India, which are Varanasi, Haridwar and Rishikesh, etc. The major reason for India being haven to all such activities is its culture. In India, if you say I am God or have attained such experience, then you are rather worshipped as an enlightened being, whereas the same act would be termed as blasphemy in other religions. India is a more tolerant country in such matters, and that has led to a breeding ground for so many gurus and yogis. You see, you will rarely find such similar instances in Islamic countries because it is highly intolerant. They are not willing to accept that there can be more than one God or a godly experience. Christianity too was once at that level, but due to present social norms, we do not see similar things happening in the West. So with time, things have changed for better or worse in both the East and the West, but the question has remained the same. Who am I? I know the reader is desperate and to answer, but dear reader, understand the situation. I cannot say what I want to say unless I prepare you and make you ready to accept the reality. Yes, in a way I have been attacking religious people, gurus, prophets and the cults. And if one is very emotionally attached, then he may quit reading. Only one who is tolerant, who has the ability to question, doubt or condemn the religious can reach to the answer. If you believe what is preached, then you will not seek. No reason for you to find the answer because you have accepted everything at face value. My methods may be wrong, but intentions are well and good. Let us now discuss the aftermath. What if you become enlightened? What if you reach fifth level? What will you do with the enlightenment? What have other people done with their achievement? Looking back at Buddha, Mahavira, Christ, Muhammad, Guru Nanak, J.K., Rajneesh, Jaggi, all have made efforts to pass on their achievement. The so-called enlightenment is used as a spiritual property and they have tried to distribute it. So enlightenment alone is not enough because it then creates an urge in you to give discourse, train disciples, create cults, some call it religion, sangha, community or a foundation, and set up various methods to help people achieve what they have achieved. Buddha said desire is a cause of suffering. But still, he did things which even a person with desire won't do. He exposed himself to hunger, hard climate, and engaged himself on long journeys only to give his message to mankind. He was desireless, yet he suffered more than he would by being a king. Same is applicable to all the gurus who call themselves enlightened but are still stuck in the web of life. Rajneesh, aka Osho, suffered similar consequences. He was extradited from America and was never allowed to enter the country again. Jesus was crucified. Muhammad had to fight battles and had to kill thousands to protect his own community. I don't think I would be wrong by saying religions that don't fall apart become religion. Every religion started off as a cult, just like every clan started with a tribe, further leading to a formation of a country. Often, over time, the founder of the cult was later termed as Messiah, Savior, or the Prophet. So this whole business of forming cults has definitely turned out to be beneficial to most of their founders. In a way, they are immortal because we still remember them, and they are alive in our hearts because of their contribution in the books of history. No doubt, most of the teachings on morality and ethics are still part of our current laws, and so not all their contribution can be disregarded. But what about the individual? He's still stuck with the same question of who am I? Why aren't gurus successful in transferring similar knowledge to their disciples? I think the problem lies in the study itself. The so-called enlightenment is an experience, and every experience is stored within us in the form of memory. More vivid the experience, deeper is its memory. But as of now, there is no proper way to transfer memory experience from one person to another. We can transfer data from one mobile device to another exactly as it is without losing any during the transfer. Exact replication of data can be done in both devices, and so that is pretty effective way, but for humans, such is not the case. If I want to share my experience or my memory with you, then I would have to use language, which is most inefficient medium. Mostly it is lost with words, emotions, accent, and translation. So for a guru to give you exact replica of his experience is very difficult via discourses. Like if I want to tell you how wine tastes like, then there is no way for me to convey the exact taste of it through conversation. So what I could do is to recreate the same kind of wine and allow you to taste it, which would prove my point. And the gurus in India are doing similar things through their experimental centers. It is a recreation event. The gurus via the session of meditation and yoga are trying to recreate the same happening which occurred to them. But very few of them are effective. So the speeches and the books which you read of these gurus are just an upper layer of their original work. They lure you with their sweet words to participate in their experimental programs and sign up into membership. Also, many gurus in the past have been accused of using narcotics in their experiments on disciples, which leads us to an interesting point. You see, the experience which they claim to have witnessed can actually be fulfilled with drugs. If you use a certain amount of drug for a certain level of time, then it can lead you to the exact state which these people are claiming to be in. But this does not solve the problem completely because the gurus use a weapon of nature. Drugs are harmful and require a certain level of supervision during its medication. It also leads to many other side effects which can even be fatal. So the gurus claim that their way is the natural way. Besides, their methods leads to the experience being permanent. The experience gained with the use of drugs lasts only for a while, but with guru's method it could be long-lasting. This kind of marketing attracts more followers. What a treat would it be for a drug addict to be able to get same experience without worrying of police officers or any side effects. Perhaps this was one reason for hippies in 1980s to 90s to join the Rajneesh cult. One thing I want you to understand is that whether you get that experience with the use of drugs or with the help of guru's long-lasting method, in the end, it still is a petty experience. And every experience is stored in the form of memory. Memory is in the brain, which is in the body. So if you die, then your brain dies with no memory. thus no experience. Thus all your efforts, all your days which you are spending in the presence of Guru are a waste because there is no life beyond death. And if there is life beyond death, even then the so-called experience is worthless because you leave it with your body. All the talks beyond death are gimmicks they have been using to keep you trapped in their web. Their real strength is not the money they have, but the people that follow them, and thus they don't want to lose you. Gurus are the kind of people who want to mark an impression in this world. They want their name to last till eternity, and the easiest way to do is to fulfill the needs of people. As we saw earlier in Maslow's hierarchy, man has three major needs, that is materialistic, psychological, and spiritual. Now, if you fulfill materialistic needs becoming an entrepreneur or businessman, then your value is still low compared to others because there are many suppliers like you. If you supply psychological needs like affection, care, love, inspiration, etc. by running an orphanage, temple, or by being a motivational speaker, or supply entertainment by being an actor, then you are placed at the better position. Because what you are supplying is a rare commodity and thus your value in the society is still higher than a businessman. But the spiritual leader stands tallest because he is supplier of a rarest commodity which perhaps doesn't even exist. Enlightenment is a product which is intangible, which requires no factory or workers to assemble. It has no guarantee or warranty, yet people are willing to shell their time and millions to grasp it. The rule of economics is everywhere. Higher demand and lower supply leads to higher prices. This is why gurus in India are capable of establishing $1 million foundation. The best part of this business is that they do not have any paid workers. The customer himself is an employee here who works day and night without salary, whom they call as volunteers. Financially as well, their business has an upper hand due to various tax exemptions given to the religious institutions and foundations. So if you are interested in making a name for yourself with a potential of abundant profit, then try to cater the people's spiritual needs. Maslow's pyramid is a less of psychological theory and more of a business theory. It should be taught to management students more than to psychologists. Now that you have seen the overview, we safely conclude that there is no benefit in visiting India to seek enlightenment since it does not have any significant value. If ever doubt strikes you, then you ask yourself, what will I do with enlightenment? The same answer could be given to the question of, who am I? Ask yourself, what will I do if I know who the I is? What difference does it make if you call yourself Jack, John, or Ryan? What difference does it make if you're not your body or your job? You will still do what you did, right? Actually, the question, who am I, was put forward with the very intention of confusing you because it leads one to an existential crisis. When you go deeper searching for an answer, then you realize that there is no I because all that the I consisted of was discarded by you. They say you are not your body, you are not your job, you are not the clothes you wear, you are not the personality you have, you are not the name you have, you are not the life you lived. All this philosophy of negation, that is, not this, not that, leads you to question your own existence. It is plucking each and every rose petal saying not this, and in the end asking, what is the rose? Well, the rose was the petals you just plucked. You are your body, you are your job, you are the clothes you wear, you are the personality you have, you are the name you have, you are the life you lived. All the things that you own or disown are responsible in creating your identity. This is the way society wants to identify ourselves, and so should we, because there is nothing wrong in it. If you don't follow the rules of the society, then you are considered as an outcast, which is what these gurus are. They want you to ask yourself, who am I? Because it will lead you to an existential crisis, and once you get into it, then they will create a path for you to come out of it. They want the people to suffer an existential crisis because it is good for their business. They like people who are lost, who do not have a sense of direction in life. These people then fall prey to the marketing of these gurus. Just like insanity is good for asylum, just like poverty is good for politicians so they can make future promises, just like crimes are good for lawyers and diseases for doctors. These gurus then, to help their business, will put forward many such paradoxical questions to you and will pretend that they know the answer but will never tell you. The gurus tell you that you are not your body or the clothes you wear, but they themselves take great care of their body and wear decent clothes. Why should you take care of something which doesn't belong to you? They very well know the rules of the society and they follow its pattern as long as it is beneficial for them. Like a guru who has Vedic or Puranic inclination will dress according to its custom, sacred thread or saffron robe would be the part of his body. Islam inclined guru will dress according to Islamic customs, and so will a Christian bishop. Beard is an integral part of most of the religious leaders because it gives them a psychological advantage. I do not know the exact reason, but somehow we respect and adore an old-looking grey-bearded man. Next time if a guru tells you that you are not your body, then ask them to trim off his beard and get clean shaved. Let him taste his own medicine. If he is not his body, then challenge him to trim off that beard. If he is not the body, then what difference does it make if the body is with beard or without beard? I can assure you that not many would be willing to do it. They may not be in love with their clothes, shoes or food, but they certainly are in love with their beard. Because it is the beard alone that does the 50% of their work. An old bearded man attracts more attention than a clean-shaven man. That beard helps him to hide their wrinkles, not physical, but those on their character. That beard allows them to hide their creepy smile and their crooked teeth. They very well know that one should be presentable to be heard, otherwise nobody gives a damn. Yet, they tell you that you are not your body and you are not your clothes. Having said that, they will still abide by a dress code in the premises of their ashram. Gurus are the people with highest hypocrisy level, but they are protected behind the robes of religion. If I say something against a Hindu guru, then people try to defend the guru and his image, which actually is a protection not for the guru, but for the religion he is representing. Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Jains will all do the same if I speak against any of their guru because it tends to offend their religion. But my friends, this is what the guru wants. He knows that the religion can always be used as a shield, so he uses the religion to propagate his own teachings. Religion has always been used as a medium to gain power. In ancient history, kings used religion to extend their boundaries without bloodshed. In the 1800s, 1900s, Christian missionaries used the teachings of Christ to convert people from different tribes and thus acquire new land. In the present world, politicians are using religion to win votes and gain power. So the real religion and its message is long lost, but it is still alive because of its other uses. Truly religious people will never flaunt its religiosity, just like a rich man who does not brag about his wealth. It is only the wannabe rich and wannabe religious who shows off their wealth and religion. To be precise, what exactly is religion? A set of beliefs and customs? And if you take this definition, then each and every person can come with his own religion. Just like in the late 1800s, Darwinism evolved almost like a religion. Many ideologies like skepticism, cynicism, stoicism, etc. could all become religions because they too had certain customs and beliefs, but they were not popular and were inconvenient for the masses, thus they remained only as schools of philosophy. Even Jainism and Buddhism are very similar to a school of philosophy, a way of life, but due to their vast acceptance and their uses in political environment gained them huge popularity, and they turned out to be renowned religions. Just like China today is in an unstable stage of religion. Some are Confucians, some Taoists, some Buddhists and others, but all these were actually philosophies turned into religion, and so the Chinese had to give it a religious touch by adding rituals and monasteries to it. Every religion is incomplete without rituals, and an institution of worship like mosque, church or monastery is a must. So no matter if you believe in one god or many, you will have to have an institution. Buddha during his entire life was all against traditional Vedic and Puranic rituals and customs. He even disregarded the classification of men in 4 classes: Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. He believed in equality, yet today there are various classes of Buddhists like Mahayana, Theravada, Vajrayana and Zen Buddhism. Similar things have happened with the teachings of Christ. He believed and preached all men are the children of God and so equally important. But Christians still are classified in the various groups like Angelic, Catholic, Protestants and so on. Even Muslims were exposed to this kind of folly when they got divided as Shias and Sunnis. So you see, the religion you are preached today is an updated version, redesigned according to the comforts of the disciples and the followers. Therefore, I do not find any point in accepting any religion at face value. It is better that you create and follow your own beliefs, which should be aligned and confined in the rules of society. Do not try to be an outcast, else the society won't spare you. You can follow your own path without intervening in other people's path. just like relationships, friends, salary, etc. are personal things which we reserve for ourselves. Similarly, religion should be followed within the personal boundaries, and no one should have the right to interfere between you and God. Just like different people with different religions live together in India, similarly, every one of us can learn to live happily in this world without clashing with the beliefs of others. If you are a technological person, then perhaps you could understand this in a technical perspective. Imagine religion is like an operating system of our society. Society being the hardware and religion being the software. Now, Hinduism, Islam, Christianity could be the major operating systems like Linux, Windows, and Mac. But having a pre-created operating system does not mean that we should keep using it. Any person with proper understanding can develop his own operating system according to his own convenience. That is, we can create our own religion if we ought to. Only thing is that we shouldn't force others to use the operating system that we prefer or which we created. That is not to overlap our religious belief onto others. Guru Nanak with his teachings did the same exact thing. He created a new operating system from the existing ones. That is, new religion from the existing religions. By the study of comparative religions, we can safely conclude that Sikhism is a combination of Hindu teachings and Mohammedan's teachings. He tried to filter all the good and the bad things from each religion and combine them into a developed version. By using this example, I can now safely conclude that religion is a creation of man, and that God, as we call it, is an image crafted according to our own understanding and the beliefs. Also, God is not even a major ingredient of religion. There are many religions which are existent without the acknowledgement of gods, like Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism, etc. Therefore, creation of religion is not something which only the elite can do or an intellectual can do. Any man with a sense of maturity and certain level of understanding can create religion by himself and for himself. This way would be much better for an individual instead of following an age-old framework. By this whole discussion then, one must not restrict himself with one or two religions, but should study each and every one of them. In order to create a new and better system, you should first study the existing ones, only then can you make updates. Search what is good, what is bad according to your beliefs, and then try to form your own. Now the reader might ask, what EDC am I telling him to engage into? Religion of an individual? Really? Well, rest assured, after studying each and every other religion, you will no longer feel any urge to establish a new religion. The religion will disappear, but its teachings will remain, which will stay with you till your last breath, and that is what we all need. Every religion was created to uphold man from his previous lowly position. The religions today have survived not because of its gods, but because of its teachings. All religions are like schools which were started to tame the wild men. Religion, that is its teaching, are the ones which make and keep a man civilized. Thus, not religion, but its teachings are what we need. But just like all systems, religion also needs an update over time, else it fails to deliver that of which it was meant to be. Actually, all the religions that you see today are the updates of previous religions. Take Islam, for example. Pre-Mohammedan times, or even during his time, idol worship was a mainstream religious activity. So there was a religion before Islam, but Muhammad saw the superficiality of it and decided to update the teachings in a more efficient manner. He simplified the whole worship procedure by saying God was one and almighty. If you're smart enough and take pen and paper to write advantages and disadvantages of idol worship, then you too would reach the same conclusion which Muhammad reached to. Buddha, Guru Nanak, Mahavira have all reached the same conclusion because that is the most efficient way. So there are people who have made an attempt to improvise previous systems and have formed a new way. By giving all these examples, all I'm trying to convey is that stop believing that religion is something divine and there sits any all-looking God. Religions that we see today have lasted so long because of their strong teachings, but the modern man now needs to evolve. It is time that you study them all and do what the rest did. Take up what is useful and discard what is useless. Don't follow, don't lead, but just learn. If everybody starts learning, then there hardly will be any need to lead or to follow. So here, I would like to halt the discussion about the religion and its origin. And I would like to repeat, not religion, but its teachings are important. Let us now hop back to our question. Who am I? Before we reach there, we need to discard all the existing routes that lead you to that quest. We have seen various definitions of the I. We have seen how different teachers told you different paths to reach the eye. We have now seen how the foundation of religion itself has failed to answer the question. Whether you are a Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, Hindu, Jain, Sikh, or others, the question is still haunting you. So religion in a way has failed in answering that question. Apart from that, there are many individuals in the past who have tried to answer the question, yet they failed, because if they were successful, then you wouldn't be reading this book. You see, the problem is the question itself. We as humans are curious beings, and we are always trying to make sense of the world around us. We want to know why Earth is moving. If it is moving, then who moves it? And from where does the force that moves the Earth generate? So this way, every answer comes with a new question. The question and answers exist together and are complementary. We need answers because operating in a nonsensical world does not impress our timid brains. And when we fail to make out any meaning, then we get into our existential crisis. We start questioning our very own existence because the way we think is a way of cause and effect. So, when we see our life and our existence that is effect, then we start looking for the cause. We want to know who created us and why. Some religions gave the answer as God, the source of creation. But the consequent question is, who created God? And why did He create us? Hindus believe that existence is Leela of God, that is play of God. Scientists like Darwin said that the nature itself was its own creator, and it is interesting in creating a perfect species through natural selection. Some believe in the theory of Big Bang. Some philosophers claim that life has no meaning and it is just happening. Just like life has no reason to happen. Just like a rose or the sun has no reason to shine up in cycles. So there are various opinions and some are appealing while some of them are not. People who are more inclined to the religious side accept the answers of prophets and messiahs. People who are rational and have a scientific mind accept the theory of evolution while the confused one turns into atheism. Others with poetic mind found comfort in philosophy. But there stands another group of people who are termed as mystics, who refuse to give or accept an answer. They say don't accept or believe but seek. They have designed various yogic or meditative techniques to lead you towards the answer. And I think this is a very well thought way, and which is why mystics are followed more because of their unique methods of teachings. You see, we as individuals do not really want an answer to the question, who am I? Because the answers will end your search. And this is why people ignore the answers given by religious teachers, by scientists, philosophers, etc. When someone gives you an answer, then your next assertion is, that's it? Is this all? So every answer creates a new question, and this way your search never ends. No answer given verbally is satisfactory, and this can be understood. The man who has crossed all 4 levels, the man who has all his basic amenities looked after, the man who has all his physical instincts satisfied, the man who has all his emotional and psychological needs gratified, the man having achieved all that, why will he be satisfied with just a simple verbal answer? By this very nature, the man is looking up for something great, beyond his grasp. Anything within his grasp is not acceptable to him, which is why he is on that quest. So the answer of a religious man, the answer of a scientist, the answer of a psychologist or philosopher does not appeal to him because it is feeble and unimpressive. On the other hand, the mystical teachings give him a sense of emptiness. The mystic challenges this man who have achieved all those 4 levels. The mystic with all his methods tests the endurance of this man at all 4 levels. He tests him physically by prescribing him too fast to expose him to harsh climate and physical exercise. Second, the mystic questions his emotional and psychological level by isolating him from all dear ones and by hurting his ego. The mystic even goes far by challenging him at financial level, asking him to donate or sacrifice his material possessions. In this way, the mystic is far better than religious, scientific or philosophical men. He strips off all the achievements made by the individual in his life. All the 4 levels which you achieved in the Maslow's hierarchy are taken away from you by the mystic, and then what is left is you. That nothingness is you. That emptiness is you. The Maslow's hierarchy is actually a wrong representation of human needs, and mystic knows this very well. The stage of self-realization or self-actualization is not the 5th step, but the 1st step as shown in the below diagram. Number 1, self-actualization. Number 2, physiological needs. Number 3, safety needs. Number 4, social needs. And number 5, ego or esteem. This might come as a shock to you, but this is the reality. When a child is born, he is already in tune with nature, as the Taoists call it. A baby is exact representation of a natural man in a natural state. The baby has no ego and thus can make no distinction between himself and nature. Therefore, man from the beginning is a self-realized being, but as he grows, he starts climbing the ladder of the society, which then takes him away from his natural state. If you climb up a ladder and reach at the top, then there is no way up except for stepping down. So the mysticism by his methods is actually making you unlearn, that is, to give up all that you have gathered. He takes you slowly and steadily down from the top of the ladder. He gets you back to the baby stage, where you attain natural state or enlightenment. The top is actually the bottom. In earlier Hindu tradition, they followed the exact same method to lead a man to his natural state. The 4 stages were Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. First, they make you participate in the game of life and encourage you to play your role well in society. And once you have fulfilled all your duties and you have reached the heights, then they ask you to step down, that is, renunciate. If you look carefully, then you may realize that this whole cycle is necessary for you to reach the state of enlightenment. If you don't start the circle of life, then it stays incomplete. So, you have to participate in this game and have to play it with your full potential. The completion of your journey and then stepping back is when the cycle gets complete. Learning alone is not enough. You have to unlearn. This is the reason why I support the methods of mystics, but in today's world, finding such a master is very rare. Most of them are frauds and charlatans, thus no value can be derived from their teachings. Many of them today are copycats, just imitators who copy each other's teachings and methods, but display as if it's their own. Besides, originality is not the problem, but the effectiveness is. You see, a Xerox copy will not make the same impression as that of an original. So, you trying and following these gurus of today is a waste of time because they themselves do not know the answer. Just like a copycat in school who imitates your answer but does not understand its meaning. Now then, is there a way to achieve what they have been preaching without their guidance? The answer is yes. You can know what they know without going into their camps or attending any seminars. But before I tell you how, let us see the need of this quest. Why do we ask these kinds of existential questions? Why are we not satisfied with what we already have? The answer is that we are incomplete. Only an incomplete man will look for ways to complete himself. Any man who is already complete will not seek that path. The man, after achieving all the things, does not feel himself to be full. He somewhere inside feels that emptiness which makes him to ask that question. Anyone who is complete, who is full in all dimensions of his life, will never ask this question, who am I? Only an incomplete man feels this urge. You see, I have classified 5 dimensions of our lives which are as follows. Number 1, physical, which is our body, its health, its structure and development. Number 2, emotional, which includes relationships with our own self as well as with others like family, boss, friends, etc. Number 3, intellectual, consists of our own intellectual growth like studies, career, art, creativity, etc. Number 4, financial, covers all our financial IQ about the money matters like taxes, investing, economy, and so on. And number 5, spiritual. This covers our inner growth as a being in matters of philosophical and religious interest. Now, when I say incomplete, then it implies emptiness in one or more dimensions from above. Some people are physically complete, that is, their health is great, they are satisfied with the way they look and have a healthy lifestyle. But they could be emotionally weak, that is, maybe their relationships are toxic and they do not have good relationship with their friends or family. Or some people could be physically strong or emotionally healthy, but their intellect perhaps hasn't reached its full potential, that is, they could be weak in studies or in their career. They could not have any artistic or creative interest, which could then lead to incompleteness in other dimensions, like intellectual weakness could lead to financial constraints, etc. We have also seen people who have great intellectual property but they lack emotional strength. They are somehow depressed or stressed because of it. There are also people who have all the 3 dimensions working well. They are physically healthy, emotionally, and intellectually, which includes creativity. They are selling albums or acting in movies, but still they are dissatisfied. Why? Because they do not have the expertise in financial dimension. All their money is spent recklessly only in sustaining their previous three dimensions, that is physical, intellectual, and emotional. They have their body in good health, they have their relationships well maintained, they have a full dedication at their job, but most importantly, they fail to handle their finances. Mismanagement of money leads to destruction in their so-called happy life. Then there are last kind of people. They have all the four dimensions working well, that is physical, emotional, intellectual, and financial. They have good health, happy family, and a great business or job with a perfectly managed finance. They have it all except their spiritual dimension is incomplete. This is the reason why you see the ultra-rich all of a sudden start distributing their wealth, donating to charity, visiting religious institutions, and even going to a Baba or Guru to seek inner peace, enlightenment, or self-realization. Just like you visit the doctor for health, you visit a psychologist for emotional remedies, you visit professors and teachers for intellectual growth, you visit a financial planner to solve money matters. This way, you visit the ashram for spiritual growth. The way we live, these things are bound to happen. From the beginning, we are taught to focus on things alone. We are told to be experts and study one thing at a time. This way of living only fills us in one dimension and keeps the rest empty. A bodybuilder is rarely an intellectual. An intellectual is rarely a bodybuilder. An intellectual who is a bodybuilder that is fit is rarely emotionally strong. And if someone has all three, then rarely financially sufficient. Also, if someone has all four, then he rarely is spiritual. Finding a complete man in this modern world is very difficult. Some are physically weak but intellectually strong. Some are physically strong but intellectually weak. Some are physically and intellectually strong but emotionally weak. So on and so forth. This incompleteness in one aspect or the other leads you to dissatisfaction. You are dissatisfied because you are incomplete. Our education system has created experts in certain fields but has failed to create a complete man. When we get into our college, we are told to compulsorily choose a stream. We are told that you cannot take up all the parts at the same time, and so we have to choose. Money or family or career, spirituality or family, health or money, etc. are many choices which we have to make all the time in our life. Making an expert individual is the goal of our current education system. This way the society becomes complete, but the individual remains incomplete. If you look at the society as an organism, then you will realize that it is complete. It has doctors, trainers, engineers, teachers, psychologists, scientists, philosophers, bankers, mystics, gurus, bishops, prophets, and so on. There, the society as a whole has become complete, but the man has remained incomplete. The growth of an individual is sacrificed for the growth of society. In a way, the past Hindu tradition of living in 4 ashrams was better than the current day. There, throughout one's life, man explored all the dimensions of his life and died by living it to the fullest. But those were different times, and today is a different time. A capitalistic world. For a man to be complete today, he should have equilibrium between his physical and spiritual life. Spirituality, that is the 5th dimension, is considered to be the one which has it all. It is presumed that if you go into a spiritual journey, then all the emptiness in you will dissolve. But such is not the case. If you from the beginning follow only the spiritual path, then there is no way for you to realize the ultimate. This is being proved by many amateurs who are depressed or stressed, and to avoid it, they seek the path of spiritualism. They believe that journey towards the ultimate would be easier than getting a college degree, job, success, etc. There are also people who, due to unhappy marriage, quit the social life and take up sannyas. This again is a dropout person. What makes you think that dropping out from society would lead you to salvation? As we discussed earlier, you have to complete the whole circle. Only then can you attain fulfillment at the last stage. Look at Gautam Buddha. He was not a dropout from society, but a man who first attained fulfillment in all the 4 dimensions. He was young, vibrant, great physically as a prince is expected to have. He was married and lived it through, only to later realize something was missing from his life, and so he became a seeker. If you are taking the spiritual journey only to escape the difficulties of materialistic life, then I can assure you failure in spiritual life as well. Also, this kind of behavior is not good for the society as a whole. If everybody starts becoming a volunteer, seeker, sannyasi, then how will you procreate, grow, and evolve as a society? All the 5 dimensions are in a way constituents of the society as well as the man. But if people start focusing only on one dimension, either spiritual, physical, emotional, financial, or intellectual, then it can lead to imbalance in the society, which could result in chaos and even fall of the whole civilization. Similar things can be seen in the West, where the majority's life is dedicated only to the financial dimension. People there live and work day and night only for the fulfillment of the financial dimension, which has led to the high depression rates. In the East, we have Japan, where the majority focuses solely on the intellectual dimension. They are concerned about making a perfect citizen, a perfect city, a perfect art, etc., which has led people to work extra hours, and consequently, this has led to high suicide rate. You see, depression is a sign given by your body that it is being overused. If you do one and only one thing, ignoring the other dimensions, then the individual is bound to get stressed, which is why they are said to have work-life balance. Take up Bhutan, for example, which is a country close to India that has focused more on the emotional growth of the human being. Even their growth rate is not GDP, which is gross domestic production, but GNH, which is gross national happiness. They have made efforts to reduce the sufferings of human life, but somewhere still they lack something, that is intellectual and financial growth. The country is underdeveloped compared to its other neighbors and is not technologically well equipped. So in a way, their happiness has come at a great cost. Now, how can this thing be improved? I'm saying not to be a dropout from society. I'm saying not to focus only on the spiritual part. Then how can it all be attained? Remember, earlier I proposed you a complete man, a man who has achievements in all the 5 dimensions of life, that is physical, emotional, intellectual, financial, and spiritual. This complete man is not an imaginary concept, but a reality distant in future. We all can be complete if we decide to be so. So you don't have to be a society dropout, you don't have to be a sannyasi or a follower of any Baba. You can be complete with just a few tweaks in your life. Don't worry, no imbalance will be created. You don't have to leave your education, job, business, or family to be a complete man. In fact, all that is the part of it. The modern man needs modern solutions, and the path we are going to look further will keep you in the society without harming its foundation. The past Hindu tradition of 4 ashrams was designed for an entire lifetime, and that had its drawbacks because not everyone is willing to sacrifice the luxury and comfort at old age and living in the jungle. There were defects in the very doctrine of ashrams, which is why people had to discontinue it. But instead of throwing it all away, we could learn from or can try to make an update. And the proposal of my complete man could be attained with the same Hindu doctrine with some changes. Our life is a mysterious phenomenon. We never know what the future has for us in its box. Therefore, neither the past nor the future is in our control, but the present alone is. But the present is like sand in our fist. The more you try to grasp it, the more it slips. We are born with each breath we inhale and we die with each breath we exhale. The generation of cells and their degeneration keeps on happening with that each breath. So in a way, this body dies and resurrects with each breath. This can be stretched out throughout our day, that is, we die when we sleep and are born again next day when we wake up. Our everyday is a beta version of our whole life itself. We experience birth and death every single day, and yet we have never paid any attention to it. But to be a complete man, we need to acknowledge it. You see, if each day is a matter of life and death, then we should try to work on our 5 dimensions every day, since we don't know which day could be our last. The Hindu doctrine of ashram failed because many people died before completing the whole circle of life. Some people died at the stage of brahmacharya, that is student. Some died at the stage of grihastha, that is householder. Some died at the stage of vanaprastha, retired. And only few reached the stage of sannyasa, that is renunciate. This way, they lived and died as incomplete beings without realizing the full potential of their lives. Many couldn't even complete the journey and had to leave in half. But if you acknowledge that every day is equivalent to one life, then you can dissect this life in a way to achieve success in all the dimensions. Our whole day is very synonymous to our whole life. In the morning, we are young and bright, fresh with an empty mind like a baby. As the day progresses, by midday we are like a man in his 30s. We are neither tired nor excited, but there is still a zeal left in us to achieve something. By afternoon, we are the man in his 40s that has the inner strength revived. He somehow realizes the mistakes he did in his 20s and 30s and tries to make a better outlook of it. In the evening, we are matured, looking at our sunset we realize our follies. We ponder about the past, wishing if it all could be relieved. And by midnight, we have tuned into an old man who, if he had peaceful life, that is day, enjoys a peaceful sleep, that is death. But if he has spent his day in a wasteful way, then he contemplates on his own existence, leading to guilt. Not all people live a similar kind of life, which I described above, and not all are unhappy with their life. Some days are good, some days are bad. Some people are glad and survive only with an achievement in one dimension. Like some are satisfied with being only intellectual or spiritual or only financially well off. Some have learned to find fulfillment in the incompleteness of life itself. So the way of a complete man is not for them. The way of complete man is only for the one who realizes that he is incomplete. And it is only you who can make that judgment about yourself. If you find yourself incomplete, which you must be since you are reading this book, then the way of complete man is for you. The way I am proposing is to dissect your entire day as one life, morning as when you are young and night when you are old. Once you acknowledge this, then you can work on your 5 dimensions throughout the day. That is, you work on your physique, emotions, intellect, finance, and spiritually all in one day. How to do that can be planned by you, but I would still design a standard timetable as a roadmap. You are free to alter, change, or modify things according to your convenience, but just make sure that you engage all your 5 dimensions in one day itself. Remember, every system, every method is flawed, and it is your duty to improvise and update it so as to make it perfect. Therefore, I do not want you to follow this method literally or like a commandment, because if you do so, then you are bound to fail. Think and act according to your intelligence and do as necessary. Now then, I would like you to work on your physical dimension in the morning, because morning is the best time to work out your body. Exercise it and clean it thoroughly and try to be in the best shape possible. Exercise to achieve fitness, endurance and strength rather than working for aesthetics alone. Your life is a waste if you fail to see the full potential of your body. Don't fall for the trend and don't engage into so-called health fads. Try to keep it simple and budget-friendly, also as organic as possible. Man has achieved and evolved to its current state without any artificial inputs, then why do you need them now? Say no to drugs or artificial vitamins and minerals unless you have any medical condition. Look at the Greeks, they understood the benefit of a healthy body and its impact on the mind. So work on your physical dimensions not only for the sake of it, but because it will help you to achieve ease in other dimensions. We can say physical dimension is a building block to the upper levels of the body, and if you ought to be complete man, then you should work on all the dimensions equally. The complete man is neither obese nor he is overly muscular or thin. He has learned to maintain balance and he is more concerned about fitness and well-being than his looks. Physical dimension not only consists of exercising but eating clearly as well. In the modern world, it is very difficult to get organic food, plus it is so expensive. But it does not hurt to have a small garden at the back of your kitchen or even to shed a few more bucks to eat clean. Gardening will help you on your artistic and creative side, plus it reduces financial burden. Also, it is far more beneficial to talk to plants than the negative opinionated people. The plant sacrifices its life for your existence yet never complains, but a man will brag even if he gives you a penny or some of his time. But these kind of problems occur only in the world where incomplete men live. In a world full of complete men, you will never face such problems. But we have to be the change we want to see. Start alone as an individual and maybe someday we will all attain that state. The civilization filled with complete men is still a dream for many visionaries. To work on each dimension, you don't need to spend hours or days but only moments. Some dimensions require more time and some less, which differs from person to person. A person already strong in physical dimension will need less time there, but maybe more time in intellectual. As far as time is concerned, you should decide how much time to dedicate on each activity. It doesn't matter if you are something now or later. The whole day, that is life, should be lived completely regardless of what is done first or later. Second is the emotional dimension. This involves satisfaction of your emotions and to maintain an equilibrium between all the things. Scientifically, emotions are not psychological but a biological creation which later affects the psychic. A certain amount of chemical, fluid or hormone, whatever you call it, gets released and that causes you to feel happiness, sadness, ecstasy, depression and so on. It is all biological, which is why people try to control them by use of chemical-infused drugs which cause you to feel in a certain way. Antidepressants and painkillers are some of the examples of such drugs. But a complete man should not engage into such artificial creation to achieve success in the emotional dimensions. The complete man is a natural man, and his body is the ultimate source of energy for him. Nature has given us all the means. Only accessibility of such is difficult, but with regular practice, one can attain expertise in those matters. Now, the three natural ways to fulfill the emotion dimensions are music, yoga, and meditation. They are easy to practice and have proven to be effective scientifically. Music is one of the simplest remedies to dissolve all your emotional conflicts. It can either create or destroy certain emotions just like a drug does, except this is a natural way. If you listen to calm music, then chances are you will feel calm too. The frequency of calm music have proven to be effective against stress, depression, and even headache. If you listen to romantic kind of music, then it creates a sense to love or to be loved. It brings that aloneness in you, and if you are already in a relationship, then it tends to make your emotional bond stronger. Not only the consumption of music, but creation of it helps too. People who are artistic in music are able to work on the three dimensions simultaneously, that is, emotional, intellectual, and financial. This way, you are able to carry on that activity for a longer period of time without getting bored. This is an advantage for every artist, be it musician, painter, dancer, writer, etc. Actually, there are many ways by which one can access and work in 2 to 3 dimensions at the same time. There are even activities that help you to work on all your 5 dimensions at the same time, and so this is something which you have to discover for yourself. For the sake of example, take Krishna. He with his flute accessed and worked on all the 5 dimensions at the same time. His music appealed to men, women, animals, gods alike. Flute requires breath and constant inhalation and exhalation is involved. Therefore, he worked on his physical dimensions there. His music touched the heavens and the underground alike. Such was his art. So you can discover such activity for yourself. Second activity to work on the emotional dimension is yoga. Now, there are various forms and levels of yoga, but for simplicity, we won't get into its details. Yoga is an activity which can allow you to work on your 3 dimensions equally, if you know the right nodes to access. The 3 dimensions that yoga gives you access to are physical, emotional, and spiritual. This same is applicable to meditation as well, except it is much simpler than yoga, and sometimes yoga and meditation are considered as complementary activities. Now, working on the emotional dimension has a very wide scope, and its applicability differs from person to person. Broadly, men are classified into extroverts and introverts. So the introvert might like the idea of watching music, movies, or reading a novel. Some may like yoga and meditation as well, but the extrovert is not in that position. Besides, we all have family, friends, relatives, and society to deal with, which is all part of the emotional dimension. We cannot isolate ourselves and think that we can get an achievement in emotional dimension by doing so. Man is a social animal, and the kind of society we have created makes it necessary to socialize. We cannot walk even a single step in this world without socializing. So, I know that there are negative people in the world and they make depressive remarks or try to pull you down, but the complete man is not afraid of those things. He has to learn to embrace negativity and failures because it is all part of life. The day is not complete without the night. God too is incomplete without the devil. Positives and negatives create each other. They are opposites yet complementary. So if you are afraid of socializing due to fear of negative people, then there is no way for you to become a complete man. Sometimes even our family or friends behave negatively with us, but that doesn't mean that we withdraw from their company. We should learn to take negativity in a positive manner. If you ought to be a complete man, then you have to take up each dimension equally. These are like the compulsory subjects in your school, except this school is your life. You fail here, then you fail everywhere. Once you achieve enlightenment in the emotional dimension, then you will be a man which Krishna in Bhagavad Gita called as Sthit Pragya, that is man with a stable mind, or a Muni who is wise, who has no illusions about good or bad, success or defeat, sadness or happiness. This is the highest level of attainment in the emotional dimension. Few lines back, I used the word enlightenment in the emotional dimension, which makes me want to define the word. The word enlightenment has a different meaning for me. Enlightened means seeing the whole picture not in parts, not in dissects, but as a whole. And such, if defined, then enlightenment is possible physically, emotionally, intellectually, financially, and spiritually. Enlightenment is not something that is reserved only for the mystics, although they have been using it as sole owners of it. But the time is changing, and it's this moment that enlightenment will be accessible to the common man. Since we are talking about emotional dimensions, we cannot end it without talking about love. Love is one of the sweetest fantasies created by man. Some prefer the word infatuation, which is caused due to hormonal changes in our body. But you see, not just love, but all our feelings are a result of biological processes. Emotional enlightenment doesn't mean that you feel no love, hatred, or jealousy. Enlightenment means that you see the whole picture but still play along for the fun of it. It is like doing something which is childish and you know it, but you still do it because it is part of life. This way you start witnessing and acknowledging all your emotions, then you will experience them, but the impact will be much lesser. This is very difficult to convey with the help of words, but any man with a mature mind can grasp it, theoretically as well as practically. Love then is that sweet pleasure which we all should cherish. Being a brahmachari just for the sake of it is not a good idea. A complete man does not ignore one thing and accept another, but he embraces it all. Good and bad, love and hatred, God and devil, Batman and the Joker are all parts of the complete man, and he has learned to live with them all in harmony. This is applicable to your other emotions also, be it anger, jealousy, compassion, etc. A complete man does not classify things into good or bad. He has reached a stage where he goes through all the emotions equally without disturbing the peace of mind. The religious institutes have taught you to go only for the positive like kindness, love, compassion, and so on, while they tell you to bury negative emotions of anger, jealousy, etc. But the psychologists have discovered that the feelings unexpressed or repressed do not die out, but they stay there deep in your unconscious. These hidden and buried feelings then express themselves unconsciously through your dreams or by making an emotional buildup which can turn into phobias or some turn into psychopaths. So do not attempt to conceal your emotions and be an expressive being. The emotional mechanism given us to by nature certainly has its own advantages, which is why it is still with us over the period of evolution. Do not try to go against or interfere in the path of nature. If you are in love, fall in love, but don't forget to get up. If you are angry, express it, but don't get swayed away with it. If you are fearful, then be afraid, but also find ways to tackle it. The emotionally enlightened is not a religious robot who only knows positive emotions. He is expressive, he is angry, he is jealous, afraid, etc. There are even people who die without ever experiencing all these emotions. Some have never fallen in love. Some have never experienced thrill. Some have never had the feeling of compassion. Some have never experienced solitude, and the list goes on. The complete man has seen it all and has gone through them all. If you too have never experienced any of such emotions or feelings yet, then it is time you try that out. Do not leave any stone untouched. There is so much more to explore in each dimension that it could even take you multiple lives to achieve it, superficially speaking. But still, people behave as if they have had it all. They speak as if they have seen it all and that there is nothing to explore. They then get depressed as if the world has ended. But it is not them, but their ignorance. Life is full of surprises and possibilities, only if you know where to look for. Third is the intellectual dimension. By intellect, I do not mean only the mind, which is informative or knowledgeable, but there are other aspects too. Creativity, art, passion, and zest to achieve something significantly is all part of intellectual dimension. For me, whatever you do to express yourself through your work is all inclusive in the intellectual dimension. So your life as a student, your life as an employer, your life as a self-employed or a boss, your life as an investor or an employed, this is all part of your intellectual dimension. And by getting intellectual enlightenment means getting better at what you like to do and reaching at its peak. I once heard a story where a father advised the child, "Boy, it doesn't matter what you do it passionately. Even if you decide to be a cobbler, be it such that nobody in the world could compete with you in your art." And I think this story pretty much sums up my meaning of intellectual enlightenment. As a society to keep functioning, it tells you to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, etc. And the reason for that is all that these are the workers who build the society. Economically as well, we need more and more people to lead the growth of the country. But what value does that growth provide if it costs the growth of an individual? We are not interested in completing the society alone, but a complete individual. The void of society will automatically be filled as the man progresses towards his own growth. An incomplete man will create incomplete things, but a complete man will create complete things. Just imagining the world with complete men gives me goosebumps. A world where each has achieved the potentiality of his being and the harmony it will produce amongst its people will give tremendous joy. So, do not miss any day without working on your intellectual dimension. If you are a student, study not because you want to be a topper, but do it because you want to be able to read, write, and speak. That is the whole goal of setting up the education system. That is to make men literate. Unfortunately, we have created a system where men just pass out with a mark sheet, who can only read that which they are taught to read, who can write only that which they are taught to write. They can speak only that which they are told to speak. This is a sign that our education system has failed. An educated person in a real sense can read what he has to read. He can write what he wants to write. He speaks what he feels is right to speak. He is expressive, and all his expressions through reading, writing, and speaking are his ways to make a change. If you are an employee, then work with your whole heart and do it like a ritual without missing a day. Try and make efforts to improve the profitability of that organization because all these efforts will lead you to intellectual enlightenment. As a businessman, your goal should not be to earn money because that work is in a way done by your employees and machines which you have incorporated. As a self-employed or businessman, your primary goal should be to create value and enhance the lives of your customers and employees. In India, we say customer is the king, and it is true to some extent. This will help you to create a balanced system where we all work for ourselves and for others as well. Lastly, if you are an investor, then your primary goal should be to support the businesses that are working towards improving the life of their customers. I know we as investor or even as an employee or businessman are very profit oriented, but we have seen the side effects of it. You cannot get something without giving. It is the rule of the nature. You have to give to receive something, and that is applicable to all things, be it love, money, hatred, charity, and so on. To get, you first give. In Hindu teachings, we call it the law of karma, and in economics, we call it the law of demand and supply. The words are different, but the concept remains the same. To conclude then, work your way upwards in every field you are in, and one day the phrase work is worship will turn into reality. The day you literally start doing your work as worship will be the day of your intellectual enlightenment. Remember, as complete man, you have to find ways which allows you to access 2 to 3 dimensions at the same time, which will accelerate your speed towards enlightenment. Fourth, we have the financial dimension to our lives. This, although very admired and favored dimension, is actually the one in which very few people are able to get success in. One working in a financial dimension means one working for money alone, but this has a twist to it. The uppermost financial stage of this dimension is that you no longer work for the money, but the money does the work for you. This can be simplified by calling it a passive income, and to find out a way to make it regular. Today, in our jobs, our business, in our arts, we all are working for money. It is the primary motivation to do all these things. So, the activities which are used to work in the intellectual dimension are used to work in the financial dimension, which is creating a problem. Every other day, we see that a student, actor, businessman, singer, etc. has committed suicide due to financial constraints. Why do you think this is happening? This is because they started their studies, business, art, etc. not for intellectual growth, but for financial growth, and failure in that led them to drug abuse, depression, and suicide. Everything today is narrowed down to its monetary value, but it is not the right scale. Just like you don't use a hockey stick to play golf, you shouldn't use these activities signed for intellectual growth for financial growth. This is also one reason for the so-called corporate problems like NPA, trademark, and copyright infringement, etc. People today are not willing to be creative, and all their energy is spent on getting money alone, and so they cheat in order to achieve it. They borrow huge loans which they don't have the capacity to pay. They do imitations of products and services. They adulterate the products and degrade its quality to save cost and increase profits. This leads to poor quality of products in the market, therefore restricting people from achieving their own personal growth. Such activities are causing a huge impact on our education system. Their acts of recruiting mediocre teachers and providing low-quality study material is a hurdle in a student's intellectual growth. So, one side you secure your financial growth and behead the growth of students. This all could stop to a great extent if we all became financially aware. You see, a financially enlightened man will not employ fraudulent ways to save costs, but will really improvise the system by finding flaws, loopholes, and by reducing wastage. The financially enlightened man will improve the operating margins of the company without compromising the quality of product or service. I cannot specify each and every aspect for you to achieve financial growth because there are numerous ways to do so. Stating and explaining each one of them will turn this book into a Bible that is too heavy to digest. But the whole idea of financial enlightenment is to generate enough passive income so as to cover all your active expenses. Now, there are various ways to do so. It could be by investing in business, real estate, stocks, bonds, fixed deposits, etc. Your ultimate goal should be to reach the stage where you no longer work for money. That is financial enlightenment. Last and the fifth dimension we have is the spiritual dimension. It is a misconception that one needs to go to India or visit a guru to attain this stage. Look at the biography of Jesus, Buddha, Mahavira, Muhammad, Krishna. They did not visit a so-called spiritual guru or attend seminars for spiritual enlightenment. You see, today is the world of the internet and all you need is at your fingertip. When I say no guru, it doesn't mean that no guidance. You need guidance and not only for spiritual growth but for other intellectual, emotional, financial and physical growth also. But guidance can be received from various sources. You don't have to be a follower or volunteer and dedicate all your life to that ashram. The so-called modern gurus are phony and have all set up the business of spiritualism. Finding a pure heart in that bunch is like searching a needle in a haystack. So instead of wasting your time and searching for that needle, just buy the whole haystack. Read all their books, watch their speeches or discourses and try to figure out the truth by yourself. Introduction to Philosophy will give you a clear vision in this matter. So start off with basic philosophical books and then you can divert your attention towards spiritualism. Learn about the East as well as the West. Learn about Nietzsche and also about Gurdjieff. Learn about J. Krishnamurti and also about Osho. Learn about Muhammad and also about Buddha. The list is endless and so you should be willing to immerse yourself into the ocean of teachings. A guru alive or a guru dead, it does not matter because not the man but his teachings make a difference. Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, Guru Nanak, Mahavir, all their teachings have rather magnified their death. It always takes time for the society to accept its mistakes. Also, remember that spirituality is not something which is beyond science. And so, do not let the superstitions rule over your mind. Nothing is beyond science. It is just a matter of time. You see, earlier the teachings about heaven and underground were only reserved for the spiritual leaders, and they considered that all such things were beyond science. But now you see who rules. Science is not inept or handicapped. It is just waiting for its organs to grow. And you will see, the evolution of science will lead to degradation of these pseudo-religious teachings. It is time then that you start working on all your 5 dimensions. We are now near the end of our journey, but next time we meet, we will meet as 2 complete men. Thank you. Note to the reader. Dear reader, I am glad that you have completed your journey successfully till the end, and I hope that my work provides value in your life. Before we set apart, I just seek your forgiveness. Pardon me if consciously or unconsciously I have hurt your prejudices, your beliefs, or your personal or religious sentiments through my work. But without being blunt, I couldn't do complete justice to this work. My intention is not to hurt, change, or convert anyone's belief system. I have used all that only to lead you towards a higher possible way of living. If you like my work, then don't forget to leave your review on Amazon, Google Books, or Goodreads. See you.